InZoi, a new life sim that is set to enter the gaming hemisphere this month on the 28th. Originally planned to release in late 2024, the early access launch was delayed due to a less than ideal playtest phase. Due to the nature of it being in a state of early access, the initial release will solely be on PC, with it later planned to be on consoles such as PlayStation and Xbox. Being developed in Unreal Engine 5 by InZoi Studio, a branch of Krafton, who have a few games under their belt. You may know them for a title called PUBG, a battle royale. But what is InZoi? The game is set to follow in the vein of loads that came before. Most notably, the best comparison would be The Sims, more in terms of how the game functions, with InZoi going for a much more hyper-realistic approach. Characters and environments alike having a high graphic fidelity, which really pays off and looks simply astonishing. The demo that released a few days ago allows you to create a Zoi and play around in build mode. This will be a short video where I'm going to focus on the former and talk about some of the limitations that I encountered and feel hinders the Zoi creator, and in turn other players making creations. If you've played The Sims 4, you pretty much know what to expect here. You go into a plethora of menus as you design a character to how you desire, combined with the graphics and control over various aspects of the Zoi via a combination of sliders and points on the Zoi you can grab, which I have dubbed grabbers, using these to kind of sculpt both facial and body features. Creating a real representation of someone is possible, although the creator is more limited than I'd like. Whilst using grabbers is interactive and fun, I feel like also having sliders for each aspect of what can be changed by a grabber as well to really narrow down that value would have been the better choice, i.e. grab parts and then use a slider after to really dial in the look, or perhaps being able to toggle between grabbers and sliders depending on the player. This brings me to my next point. Creating some aspects, such as a specific smile, isn't always possible. For example, if you want to make a really creepy smile, for example in the style of the Smile movie, you can't fully do it because of the angles and such being locked to specific values that aren't viewable, because again there's no slider to adjust this. Only grabbers can manipulate these areas. Being able to unlock these restrictions would be great. In connection to this, you can't truly make a fat person. Yes, you can have a fat Zoi, but you can't, for example, make an accurate to life 600-pound land monster, whereas you can actually make an extremely skinny Zoi. In some areas, you're more restricted than you are compared to others. The stomach is actually very restricted in how you can shape it. So if you want to make a huge person and go really into detail with how their stomach hangs and such, it's just not possible. Adding more grabbers here to be able to add more shape would be nice. The buttocks is also an area that feels heavily limited, especially again when it comes to creating a fat Zoi. In making the buttocks too big, the back will kind of slope inwards as it goes down and not line up. This is simply due to the fact that there are no ways to distinguish how the back looks. You can't make it bigger or smaller through the use of a grabber. Next, I want to talk about hair. There are a good variety of styles, however, I feel like each style could have benefited from length options for different areas, i.e. bangs. Not much else to say here other than it would have been a nice touch. Height does not exist in InZoi. There's no way to adjust the predetermined height of a Zoi. So if you want to make a dwarf, or maybe you want to create yourself accurately and you're really small, this is currently not achievable. This is apparently because it would mess up animations. Seeing as height adjustment isn't a thing in the Sims series, it would have been nice to see it included in InZoi. I'm sure someone will come along at some point and create a mod to add this, like in The Sims 4. Tattoos dubbed face paints have been recently added, allowing adding face and neck variants, further expanding to body tattoos later, with August given as the earliest date. Blemishes and scars have also been introduced in the new demo. Adding these is a great boon. However, like with face paints, you can only add one for each category. So if you wanted a face for the scars, that's not doable. This also applies to facial piercings, with only one being applicable at a time. Not exactly sure why it's limited like this, but I'd like to see this restriction removed, or at least lessened to some extent. There are no options in the case of some body modifications. For example, support earplugs. They do not exist in the InZoi verse. Children, which in the first demo from last year were highly restricted, meaning you couldn't edit them at all much, physically at least. In this new demo, now you can more finely sculpt how their faces will look. Their body customization is still being more limited, but they now have presets. So if you want to make a bunch of mini chonkers and protest against Jamie Oliver, you can now do that, compared to the last demo where fat children weren't allowed. Some glitches with clothing are present, such as clipping and morphing around things like the custom watch you can create. I'd assume this is an oversight and will be fixed at some point along the road. Overall, the limitations I've mentioned aren't ideal, but they're not make or break for me at least. They just kinda jumped out at me when experimenting. The InZoi creator is still very nice and user friendly. I'm sure there will be many great creations made with it. Some other upcoming things worth noting about the game include the following. Supernatural aspects, with ghosts being linked to the karma system. If a InZoi has good karma, that InZoi will pass on to the afterlife, whilst a InZoi with bad karma will remain in the world until they have adjusted their karma to be more positive. Also, it was noted gameplay as a ghost will be more limited compared to that of a living InZoi. However, not much else was mentioned. Ghosts won't be in the initial launch, but they'll come at some point down the road. One of the features I've been most excited for is the ability to scan images and have it turned into a 3D object using the in-game 3D printer, which you can try out in the demo if you go to the build mode section. I added some images I got from a quick Google search and you can see the results for yourself. In The Sims 4 you have to rely on purchasing official packs for additional items if you're not into the modding scene. However, with this tool you could add a plethora of your own custom objects easily through the game, in essence creating your own packs for free. Whilst the 3D printer isn't perfect, with results varying, I'm sure it will be updated down the road to increase its usability. The original plan with building mode was to allow players to build unlimited floor levels, having buildings go up as high as you could conceive. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties arising from extremely tall buildings, this was scaled back, now said to allow the player to create buildings up to a maximum of 30 floors. Whilst not unlimited, it's still a vast amount. I didn't try this out, but it was mentioned by Mr. Kim, whom is the game's visionary. Animals will be scattered throughout the world at launch. These will be interactable, but won't be adoptable. However, pets are planned to be added at some point later down the road. Schools at launch will act as a simple rabbit hole. Later, the development team wishes to create a fully immersive system. Likewise are hospitals, which are not currently planned to be included in the base release as far as I've read. It's stated this is a feature they also want to be expansive, so it will probably be added later on. Modding will, as far as I can tell, be supported at launch. The game is built in Unreal Engine 5, so this will be possible via the blueprints method. Whilst building a city from scratch isn't supported, you can customize cities to a level of degree where you can make them feel like your own. InZois will wear towels when taking showers. This, according to devs, is due to the game's hyper-realistic graphics. Another possible future feature that is worth noting is multiplayer, with the devs saying that they're open to the possibility of having features such as the ability to meet up with friends online or inviting them to your InZoi's home. Mr. Kim has gone on record to say that the game will definitely not be delayed again and launched this month on the 28th, whilst also going on to say the road ahead will be long, noting that to fully realise his vision, the game will potentially take up to 10 years to fully mature. With the upcoming release of this game, some have theorised that it will kill The Sims. Let's be realistic though, The Sims is too big at this point. It has a die-hard fan base. It's not going anywhere. If anything, people are likely to play both. The InZoi devs said they see themselves as more of an alternative than a competitor. However, a positive InZoi does bring with it is indeed competition for EA. Let's face it, EA has been very money hungry when it comes to the Sims DLC packs. There have been no other real alternatives for people to turn to, so EA have pretty much been able to milk their fan base. It wasn't always so bad, but with The Sims 4, they've kind of gone insane with power. It's so expensive for the average player to own everything released for The Sims 4. The grand total roughly clocking in at around $1,235 last time I checked. Probably more than that now. Even with sales, it can still reach up into the high hundreds. Some players do feel the need and compulsion to buy everything available, even if they can't really afford it. To some, it's an addiction, the need to have it all. EA undoubtedly knows this. I believe based on their past history, EA is very practiced in the art of being predatory upon their consumers. Maybe with the release of InZoi, EA EA will go easier on DLC and be more fair in the future. Only time will tell. I'm going to leave it here. The game seemingly has a lot to offer, and this is just the beginning, with many more features set to be added over the course of the next 10 years. Thank you for watching, I wish you well, and for now, goodbye.